Now, the last question of the night to you is this. If war breaks out, do you, well, we know, but I have to pose this question to you because America is so dependent on China's uh, export to the United States, and 93 to 95% of all goods on U.S. shelves and all the stores come from China or a subsidiary of China. When war breaks out and China starts an embargo on the United States, what will the economic scene look like? Because all hell should break loose because there will be massive bankruptcy, massive unemployment, massive store closures, uh, it's scarce food, scarce items. Where would this take America at home when war breaks out in Asia between the two superpowers?
Let's just think about that a little bit. I gave you a small idea when I said that, there are 1,500, almost 1,600 companies that supply parts that the United States uses for air-to-air missiles or air-to-land missiles, right? So that gives you a sense. That's in a sector where they don't want that dependency. But if you think about everything else, you're absolutely right. The United States cannot live without China. There's a fundamental sense in which we are like conjoined twins, right? And if you separate the conjoined twins, you have to understand that it's the other twin, China, which has the beating heart and the liver and the brain, right? Right.
Mhm.
So what's going to happen to the United States? That's exactly as as anybody could predict. Our economy is going to crash. Everything is going to be difficult. You think of your average car. Your average car has 30,000 components in it. A lot of those components come from China. Think of your jet, it has 300,000 parts. A lot of those components come from China. So if you cut China out of the picture, yes, we have to be ready for chaos. We have to be ready for supply chains to break down completely. And during COVID, we got a small taste of what that was like. Not enough chips, we don't have cars, right? Building materials are short, everything is short. But simply the fact is that the United States, in its kind of monopoly stage of economic development, decided that it was going to financialize everything. What I mean by that is that the US corporations decided that they were just going to ask people to give them money or demand money from people and not make anything useful. This is what we call a rentier economy. You just collect rents, right? Well, how do you collect rents? Essentially, you collect rents because you have the force to coerce other people to pay you rent, but you're still not creating anything um, anything productive. They sometimes say that GM is a finance company masquerading as a car manufacturer, right? I mean, they were making more money at one point from their loans than they were from selling cars. So there's a way in which the US has financialized its economy in incredibly non-productive ways. And therefore, it needs to have a productive substrata that's providing it everything it needs. And so if it decides to go to war against its productive subalterns, against its engine, right? Against, you're going to kill the goose, right? That lays the
Mhm.
golden eggs. How is that going to work out for you? It's not. It's an act of madness. It's an act of suicide. And so that is what the ruling imperial elite have on the agenda. Why do they think this way? They don't think. They just believe. They're true believers. They believe that they are engaged in a war of good and evil. As Reinhold Niebuhr was the kind of architect of the Cold War, he said that we have to risk the end of the world in order to prevent the rise of, the global South, of, socialist movements. They honestly believe that. They really, when you hear them talk to themselves, they actually say these things to themselves. And that is what's so frightening, that, this imperial elite is so out of touch with reality and so stuck on its ideological crusade that it would rather see the end of the world than the end of their power, because the end of their power for them is the end of their world. It's not the end of the world, but it's the end of their world as they see it. And they would rather end the world than let that happen.